She laughed at his clothing, not knowing he's a millionaire. A young woman, consumed by appearances and struggling to make her mark, meets a man who seems to have nothing, his clothes tattered, his demeanor carefree. She mocks his shabby outfit, thinking he's just another nobody. But what she doesn't realize is that he's hiding a life of unimaginable wealth, with secrets that could change everything. Who is he really? Why is he living this way? And when the truth comes out, will she see beyond the surface? Or will it be too late? This story will take you on an unforgettable journey of appearances, identity, and the love we almost miss. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Mia Carter adjusted her designer sunglasses, squinting at her phone screen as she positioned her tripod just so. The afternoon sun streamed through the cafe's large windows, creating the perfect golden lighting she needed for her latest video. Her oat milk latte sat carefully placed on the rustic wooden table, the foam art still pristine and untouched, a perfect prop for her aesthetic. Lighting? Check. Coffee placement? Perfect, she muttered, ticking off her mental checklist. The cafe buzzed with the gentle hum of conversation and espresso machines, providing the ideal background ambiance. Her phone buzzed. Sarah's message flashed across the screen. Make it flashy. Views are down 15% this month. We need this one to pop. Mia's stomach tightened. She took a deep breath, trying to push away the anxiety that had become her constant companion lately. Right. Flashy. I can do flashy, she whispered to herself, adjusting her cream-colored blazer. Just as she pressed record and began her practiced intro. Hey, beautiful people. Today we're diving into why aesthetics matter in everything we do. A sudden commotion caught her off guard. Oh, sorry. Coming through. A male voice called out, followed by the sound of stumbling footsteps. Before Mia could react, a tall figure carrying what looked like a small library's worth of books wobbled into frame. Time seemed to slow as she watched in horror as the stack of books tumbled, creating a domino effect that sent her carefully positioned tripod crashing to the ground. Her perfectly crafted latte splashed across the table, creating a beige waterfall that dripped onto her white pants. Are you kidding me? Mia exclaimed, jumping up from her seat. She looked at the culprit, a man about her age wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt and jeans that had definitely seen better days. His dark hair stuck up at odd angles, as if he'd been running his hands through it all day. Nice to meet you, Mr. Homeless Chic, she said, sarcasm dripping from every word as she dabbed at her pants with a napkin. The man looked up from gathering his scattered books, and to her surprise, his face broke into an easy, lopsided grin. His eyes sparkled with amusement rather than embarrassment. I prefer Adam, actually, he said, standing up with his arms full of recovered books. And I'd be happy to replace that. He gestured to the spilled latte. Very fancy coffee. Mia opened her mouth to refuse, but something in his confident demeanor made her pause. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the way he seemed completely unfazed by her cutting remark. Fine, she found herself saying, but it's an oat milk latte with an extra shot and let me guess, light on the aesthetic disaster? Adam finished, his grin widening. 5 minutes later, they sat across from each other with fresh drinks. Mia couldn't help noticing how the chaos of their meeting had completely derailed her carefully planned video schedule. So, Adam said, gesturing to her setup, does it ever get exhausting, making sure everything looks perfect all the time? Excuse me, Mia bristled, her defenses rising instantly. I mean, all this. He waved his hand at her tripod, the strategic placement of her accessories, her carefully curated outfit. What would you post if no one was watching? The question hit her like a punch to the gut. Before she could formulate a response, Adam glanced at his watch and stood up abruptly. Sorry, gotta get to a place, he said vaguely, gathering his books. A place? Mia echoed, thrown by the sudden exit. But Adam was already heading toward the door, leaving Mia staring after him, her new latte cooling beside her. "What's his deal?" she muttered, turning back to her toppled equipment. As she reached for her tripod, she found her mind wandering back to his question, annoyed at how it seemed to echo in her thoughts. Sunlight streamed through Mia's apartment windows, casting a warm glow on her minimalist workspace. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she stared at the footage from yesterday's cafe disaster. The video timeline showed her perfectly posed introduction, then chaos as Adam tumbled into frame. She'd managed to salvage some usable content afterward, but something felt off. What would you post if no one was watching? Adam's question kept nagging at her like an itch she couldn't scratch. Mia leaned back in her ergonomic chair, running her hands through her carefully styled hair. The footage on her screen looked polished, professional, and completely hollow. "This isn't working," she muttered, pushing away from her desk. The morning light caught the row of awards on her shelf. Influencer of the Year, Best Fashion Content Creator, reminders of everything she'd built. Her phone buzzed with another message from Sarah. "How's the edit coming? Remember, we need those engagement numbers up." Mia's stomach churned as she looked at the raw footage again. There was a moment right after the spill when she laughed genuinely at the absurdity of it all. But that clip didn't match her carefully curated feed. With a heavy sigh, she deleted it and went with her standard polished version. Later that afternoon, feeling restless in her apartment, Mia grabbed her bag and headed back to the cafe. Just for a change of scenery, she told herself, ignoring the tiny voice suggesting she might be hoping to run into someone specific. The cafe was quieter than yesterday, with just a few customers scattered around. Her eyes immediately found him. Adam was tucked away in a corner, completely absorbed in a leather-bound book. His hair was just as messy as yesterday, his clothes still wrinkled, but somehow he looked perfectly at home. Mia hesitated, then squared her shoulders and approached his table. Before she could speak, Adam looked up with an amused smile. "Following me now, are we, Miss Instagram Perfect?" "You wish." Mia rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling. "This happens to be my regular cafe." "Ah yes, the perfect backdrop for your perfectly curated life," Adam teased, closing his book. "Please join me in my humble corner of authenticity." "Do you ever get tired of being so philosophical?" Mia asked, sliding into the chair across from him. "Do you ever get tired of hiding behind filters?" he countered, his eyes twinkling. Their conversation flowed easily, jumping from topic to topic. Adam had a way of turning her defenses into playful banter, making observations that hit uncomfortably close to home. "You know," he said, stirring his black coffee, "it's interesting how we all create these best versions of ourselves online. Like we're afraid someone might see who we really are." "Says the man who probably doesn't even own a smartphone," Mia retorted, but his words struck a chord. Walking home later, Mia realized that despite their lengthy conversation, she knew virtually nothing about Adam. He'd skillfully deflected every personal question, turning the conversation back to her or speaking in general terms. She made a mental note to be more direct with her questions next time, if there was a next time. The morning chill nipped at Mia's fingers as she pushed open the cafe door, the familiar bell chiming above her head. Her eyes automatically scanned the room, searching for a particular messy-haired figure. But Adam wasn't there. She tried to ignore the slight disappointment that settled in her chest, along with the realization of how quickly he'd become part of her daily routine. "The usual, Mia," called Marco, the barista, already reaching for the oat milk. His cheerful efficiency was one of the reasons she loved this place. "Thanks, Marco." She settled into her favorite window seat, pulling out her laptop. The morning light streamed through the glass, warming her face, but the screen's blank documents seemed to mock her as she attempted to outline her next post. After 15 minutes of typing and deleting, punctuated by frustrated sighs, she groaned in frustration. What would you post if no one was watching? Adam's words echoed in her mind again, making her chest tight with an emotion she couldn't quite name. She pulled out her phone and typed a quick message to Sarah. Struggling with content ideas. Any suggestions? The response came almost immediately, her phone buzzing against the wooden table. Make it bold, make it shiny. Your followers need that wow factor. Mia stared at the message, feeling a headache building behind her eyes. The cafe suddenly felt too cramped, too noisy, with the espresso machine hissing and conversations blending into an overwhelming buzz. She needed air. The park across the street offered a welcome escape. Fallen leaves crunched under her boots as she walked, breathing in the crisp autumn air that carried the faint scent of wood smoke. But even here, her mind wouldn't settle. Every bench she passed could be a photo opportunity, every colorful tree a potential backdrop, every passing dog walker a chance for lifestyle content. She'd trained herself too well to see the world through a content creator's lens, and sometimes she wondered if she could ever turn it off. Lost in thought, she nearly collided with someone on the path. "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't..." She looked up to find Adam's familiar face, though his usual easy smile was missing, replaced by dark circles under his eyes and a tightness around his mouth. "Mia," he said, stuffing his hands deeper into his pockets. He seemed distracted, almost nervous, so different from his usual confident demeanor that it made her stomach clench with worry. "Hey," she said, studying his tense expression. "I was actually at the cafe earlier. Want to head back for a quick coffee? My treat." Adam hesitated, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, leaves crackling beneath his shoes. "I probably shouldn't." "Come on," Mia pressed, touching his arm gently. "You look like you could use a break from whatever's bothering you." To her surprise, he nodded, his shoulders dropping slightly. "Maybe you're right, but just for a few minutes." Over steaming cups of coffee, Adam's usual wit seemed subdued, his responses coming a beat too late. When Mia asked about his day, he gave a half-hearted smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just dealing with some personal stuff. Nothing exciting." "Want to talk about it?" she asked, leaning forward slightly. "Not particularly," he replied, checking his phone, the first time she'd ever seen him do that. The screen's blue light reflected in his troubled eyes. "I should actually get going." "Already?" Mia couldn't keep the disappointment from her voice. Her coffee barely touched. "We just got here." "Sorry," he said, standing abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Thanks for the coffee break. I needed it." And just like that, he was gone, leaving Mia staring at his half-finished drink, the steam still rising in lazy spirals. Back in her apartment, Mia couldn't stop replaying their brief interaction while she paced her living room. The Adam she'd met today was so different from the confident, teasing man who'd knocked over her tripod weeks ago. His distraction, his nervousness, the way he kept checking his phone, none of it fit the person she thought she knew. What was he hiding? And why did she care so much about finding out? The questions nagged at her, refusing to let go. The warm glow of the bistro's string lights cast a cozy atmosphere as Mia slid into the booth across from her friends. The familiar scent of garlic and herbs wafted through the air, instantly making her feel at home. Kelsey was already sipping a glass of red wine, while Liv studied the menu with intense concentration. Her brow furrowed in thought. "You look like you're solving a math problem," Mia teased Liv, settling into the cushioned seat. "The real problem is you," Kelsey said, putting down her wine glass with a decisive clink. "You've been moping all week, walking around like someone stole your favorite camera. Spill." Mia sighed, fidgeting with her napkin, folding and unfolding the corners. I'm stuck. Everything I create feels fake. Like I'm just going through the motions. And then there's this guy. A guy? Liv perked up, menu forgotten, her eyes sparkling with interest. Now we're talking! It's not like that, Mia protested, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. He's this weird, scruffy guy who keeps showing up at my cafe. He's so frustrating. Always saying cryptic things about authenticity and then disappearing like some social media ghost. Ooh, Mr. Mysterious. Liv wiggled her eyebrows, practically bouncing in her seat. Maybe he's a tortured artist living in some dingy studio, painting masterpieces between cups of black coffee. Please, Kelsey snorted, swirling her wine. With those philosophy major vibes, he's totally a trust fund baby playing poor. Secret millionaire, I'm calling it. Nobody has time to hang around cafes all day unless they're loaded. The waiter arrived with their appetizers, setting down steaming plates that filled the air with savory aromas, and Mia found herself laughing despite her frustration. You're both ridiculous. I don't even know why I care who he is. Because he got under your skin, Liv said, reaching for a bruschetta and taking a bite. But you know what? Maybe he has a point about authenticity. Your followers might actually love seeing the real you. The real me? Mia's stomach churned at the thought. The one who stress eats cookie dough at midnight and can't match her socks? Who sometimes forgets to wash her makeup off before bed? Exactly, Liv exclaimed, pointing her half-eaten bruschetta for emphasis. That's relatable content right there. Pure gold. Your engagement would probably go up, Kelsey added pragmatically, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. People are tired of perfection. They want real. Later that night, Mia sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop balanced on her knees, the soft glow of the screen illuminating her face. She typed Adam Walker into various search engines, adding different keywords: art, books, philosophy. Nothing matched the mysterious man from the cafe. Each dead end only made her more curious. Frustrated, she moved to her desk and opened a new blog post. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began typing. What if we stopped pretending? She stared at the words for a long moment, the cursor blinking accusingly before hitting delete. What's your story, Adam? She muttered, closing her laptop with a sigh and flopping back onto her pillows. Her mind still spinning with questions about the enigmatic stranger who seemed to see right through her carefully crafted image. The morning sun filtered through Mia's curtains as her alarm chimed. She rolled over, grabbed her phone out of habit, but then set it back down with a sigh. The thought of crafting another perfect post made her shoulders tense. Her Instagram feed waited expectantly, hungry for fresh content. But today the thought of perfectly staged photos left her feeling hollow. Not today, she muttered, pushing herself out of bed. She needed space to think, somewhere far from the constant pressure of likes and comments. Her usual morning routine of checking metrics and planning content felt suffocating. The library welcomed her with its familiar scent of old books and polished wood. Mia breathed in deeply, letting the quiet atmosphere wash over her. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, creating warm patches on the worn carpet. The gentle rustling of pages and soft footsteps echoed through the space. For the first time in days, her mind felt clear. As she wandered through the towering shelves, trailing her fingers along leather-bound spines, a familiar figure caught her eye. There, in a secluded corner, sat Adam. His usual disheveled appearance seemed oddly at home among the ancient texts, his dark hair falling across his forehead as he read. He was completely absorbed in a leather-bound volume, his brow furrowed in concentration. Mia hesitated, then walked over. "Is this seat taken?" Adam looked up, his green eyes crinkling with amusement. "We really need to stop meeting like this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The soft morning light cast shadows across his face, highlighting his angular features. Glancing at his book, Mia's eyes widened. "Wait, is that? That's a first edition Hemingway. How did you find that here?" Her fingers itched to touch the weathered cover. "Let's just say I have a knack for stumbling across treasures," Adam replied with that cryptic half-smile she was beginning to know all too well. He adjusted the book so she could see it better. Their conversation drifted through literature like a gentle stream, touching on favorite authors and forgotten classics. Adam's knowledge was impressive, and Mia found herself leaning in, drawn by his passionate descriptions. His eyes lit up when he talked about the stories that moved him. "So, where did you learn so much about literature?" she asked, trying to steer the conversation toward him. Her curiosity about this mysterious man grew with each encounter. Adam's smile turned playful. "Here and there. But why dwell on the past when the present is so much more interesting?" He closed the book carefully, treating it with reverence. "Want to take a walk in the park? It's too nice to stay indoors." Mia hesitated, glancing at her phone. No new notifications screamed for her attention. The world of social media seemed distant and unimportant in this moment. "You know what? Yes." As they strolled through the park's winding paths, their conversation turned to deeper waters. "Why do you chase perfection so hard?" Adam asked, hands in his pockets. His words carried no judgment, only genuine curiosity. "Sometimes the most beautiful things are the ones with cracks," says the man who won't share a single personal detail about himself, Mia countered, raising an eyebrow at him. Adam just smiled and shrugged, leaving Mia to watch him walk away moments later, his figure growing smaller against the park's green backdrop. The spring breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. "Who are you really, Adam Walker?" she whispered to herself before heading home, her mind already filling with fresh ideas for her blog. Ideas that felt more authentic than anything she'd posted in months. Back in her apartment that evening, Mia curled up on her plush gray couch, her laptop balanced on her knees. The soft glow of her screen illuminated her face as she scrolled through her Instagram feed. Her thumb paused over the perfectly curated photos, each one a testament to careful staging and meticulous editing. The numbers beside each post, likes, comments, shares, seemed to mock her tonight. Opening a new draft, she began typing about authenticity and the masks people wear online. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she poured out her thoughts, inspired by her conversation with Adam in the park. The words flowed easily, honest, and unfiltered. But as she read over the words, doubt crept in. The post felt raw, vulnerable, too real. With a frustrated sigh, she hit delete, watching her heartfelt words disappear into digital nothingness. "What am I doing?" she muttered, running her fingers through her hair. The question echoed in her quiet apartment, unanswered. The next morning, sunlight streaming through her windows, Mia tried to focus on the upcoming art gallery event. It was a big opportunity, the kind that could boost her following significantly. The gallery was showcasing emerging artists, and she'd been specifically invited to cover it for her channel. Her mind raced with possibilities and potential pitfalls. Her phone sat on her desk, and she found herself picking it up before she could think better of it. She typed out a message to Adam. "Covering an art gallery event tomorrow night. Want to come? Promise there will be free wine." Her heart skipped a beat as she hit send. His response came quickly. "Free wine? Count me in, though I might show up in my signature homeless chic style." Mia couldn't help smiling at his text, even as she wondered if he was taking it seriously enough. This was work for her, after all. She spent the next few hours meticulously planning her content strategy, making notes about the best angles for photos and which artists to highlight. her notebook filled with detailed sketches and bullet points. Moving to her closet, she pulled out outfit after outfit, creating a small mountain of rejected choices on her bed. Designer labels and vintage finds alike were cast aside, until she finally settled on a black silk dress that walked the line between professional and artistic, paired with delicate gold jewelry that caught the light with every movement. As evening approached, butterflies danced in her stomach. She couldn't tell if they were from pre-event jitters or the thought of seeing Adam in a professional setting. What if he showed up actually looking homeless? What if he said something inappropriate while she was filming? The scenarios played out in her mind like a horror movie on repeat. Standing before her full-length mirror, Mia smoothed down her dress for the 100th time. Her reflection showed a perfectly polished influencer, ready to network and create content. But underneath, her nerves were doing somersaults. She adjusted a strand of hair, then readjusted it back. "It's just an event, and he's just a guy," she told her reflection firmly, reaching for her designer clutch. The words didn't quite convince her, but they'd have to do. Taking one final deep breath, she headed for the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors, each step echoing with purpose and uncertainty. The artisan gallery sparkled under crystal chandeliers, the soft jazz music creating an elegant atmosphere that filled every corner of the space. Mia stepped through the grand entrance, her emerald cocktail dress catching the light and sending tiny reflections dancing across the walls. She clutched her camera with slightly trembling fingers, ready to capture the perfect moments for her followers. Her heels clicked against the polished marble floor as she scanned the room, taking in the sophisticated crowd of art enthusiasts and collectors. When Adam walked in minutes later, Mia almost dropped her camera, her hands fumbling with the expensive equipment. He looked completely out of place in his faded jeans and plain navy shirt, like he'd wandered in from a coffee shop by mistake. A few well-dressed guests gave him questioning looks, whispering behind their champagne glasses. His dark hair wasn't even styled. It fell naturally across his forehead in casual waves. "Oh boy," Mia whispered under her breath, feeling her cheeks warm with embarrassment. She'd forgotten to mention it was a formal event. Her stomach twisted with guilt at the oversight. But Adam seemed completely unfazed by the sideways glances and raised eyebrows. He spotted her and walked over with his usual easy smile, his confidence apparent in every step. "Nice party," he said, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter with a graceful nod. Before Mia could respond or apologize for not warning him about the dress code, Adam was already deep in conversation with a nearby couple about the large abstract painting they were admiring. His eyes lit up with genuine enthusiasm as he discussed the artist's use of negative space and bold color choices. The couple hung on his every word, their initial judgment of his casual appearance forgotten in the face of his expertise. "The way the artist layers these colors," Adam explained, gesturing to the canvas with natural authority, "it creates a dialogue between light and shadow that's reminiscent of early abstract expressionism. See how the brushstrokes here seem to dance across the canvas?" Mia watched in amazement as more people gathered around, drawn into the discussion like moths to a flame. She introduced him to some of her social media contacts, who seemed charmed despite his casual appearance, laughing at his witty observations and nodding at his insightful comments. As they moved through the gallery, Adam pointed out details she'd completely missed: the hidden patterns in a sculpture, the subtle commentary in a series of photographs, even the way certain pieces were positioned to create a narrative flow. His knowledge was impressive, and Mia found herself seeing the artwork through new eyes, her camera forgotten in her hands as she absorbed his passionate explanations. What really caught her attention, though, was how the gallery owner, Elizabeth Chen, greeted Adam with a warm hug and familiar pat on the back. Several prominent collectors nodded to him familiarly as they passed, treating him like an old friend. One famous artist even stopped to chat with him about an upcoming show. Their conversation peppered with insider references Mia didn't understand. "How do you know all these people?" Mia asked, trying to keep her voice casual while curiosity burned inside her. Adam shrugged, taking another sip of champagne, his expression giving nothing away. "I've been around," he said vaguely, his tone gentle but firm. Before she could press further, he checked his phone and frowned. "Sorry, I've got an early morning tomorrow. I should head out." "But," Mia started, but he was already weaving through the crowd toward the exit, leaving her standing alone with her questions. Later, sitting in her car in the quiet parking lot, Mia scrolled through her photos from the evening. She stopped at one particular shot, Adam talking animatedly with a glamorous woman in red, his hands gesturing as he explained something about the painting behind them. His eyes sparkled with passion, completely at odds with his casual attire. "What's your story, Adam?" she murmured, staring at the image and tracing her finger across the screen. Sunlight streamed through Mia's kitchen window as she sat at her small wooden table, clutching her morning coffee. Her laptop screen glowed with photos from last night's gallery event. She clicked through them slowly, studying each one with careful attention, her trained eye catching details she'd missed in the bustling atmosphere of the evening. "Wait a minute," she muttered, zooming in on one particular shot. There was Adam again, engaged in what looked like an intense conversation with that elegant woman in the silver dress. Mia had noticed them talking throughout the evening, but seeing it captured in her photos made it feel more significant somehow. The way they leaned in toward each other, the animated gestures, the focused expressions, it all spoke of familiarity. She pulled up several more images. In each one, Adam and the woman seemed completely absorbed in their discussion, oblivious to the crowd flowing around them. The woman's perfectly coiffed silver hair and designer dress created a stark contrast to Adam's casual attire, his usual worn jeans and simple button-down looking even more out of place next to her polished appearance. Curious, Mia opened her browser and typed, "elegant silver-haired woman art collector" into the search bar. After a few clicks, she found what she was looking for. "Eleanor Preston," she read aloud, scanning the article, her coffee forgotten in her hand. "Major philanthropist and art collector, known for supporting emerging artists, works with anonymous donors to fund groundbreaking initiatives." The more she read, the more impressive Eleanor's credentials became. Mia sat back in her chair, her coffee growing cold beside her laptop. The pieces weren't quite fitting together, like a puzzle with missing edges. How did someone like Adam, who dressed like a college student and hung out in cafes, know one of the city's most prominent art patrons? The disconnect between his laid-back persona and this connection to the art world's elite nagged at her. She grabbed her phone and typed out a message to Adam. "Great seeing you last night. Sorry you had to leave early." Her thumb hovered over the send button before adding, "Hope whatever you had to do this morning went well." She tried to keep her tone casual, fighting the urge to pepper him with questions. His response came quickly. "Thanks. Yeah, just had some things to take care of." The brevity of his reply only heightened her curiosity. Mia frowned at his vague reply, her fingers drumming against the table. She tried again. "Looked like you were having an interesting conversation with Eleanor Preston." She held her breath, waiting for his response. This time, his response took longer. "She knows her art. Nice lady." Another deflection, another piece of the puzzle that refused to fit. Mia set her phone down with a sigh of frustration, running her fingers through her hair. Every answer from Adam just led to more questions, creating a maze of mystery she couldn't navigate. She curled up on her couch, phone in hand, and started typing several different messages. Are you involved in art collecting? Delete. How do you know Eleanor Preston? Delete. Why are you so mysterious about everything? Delete. Each attempt felt more desperate than the last. Finally, she tossed her phone aside, pulling her knees up to her chest. These weren't questions for texts. They deserved real conversation, with all the nuance that came with face-to-face interaction. She needed to ask him in person, when she could read his expressions and push past his usual deflections. She just had to wait for the right moment, though patience had never been her strong suit. The musty scent of old books filled Mia's lungs as she stepped into the library. After a restless morning staring at her phone screen, endlessly scrolling through comments and metrics, the quiet atmosphere felt like a warm embrace. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, casting gentle shadows across rows of bookshelves, highlighting dancing dust motes in the air. The soft whisper of turning pages and the distant hum of the air conditioning created a peaceful symphony that seemed to wash away her digital fatigue. Mia wandered through the aisles, running her fingers along book spines, feeling the varied textures beneath her fingertips. No pressure to post, no need to craft the perfect caption, just the simple pleasure of being present in this moment. She turned a corner into the classics section and stopped short, her breath catching. There, at a wooden table tucked against the wall, sat Adam. His dark hair fell across his forehead as he bent over a leather-bound volume, completely absorbed, the afternoon light casting a golden glow around him. She approached quietly, but the old floorboards creaked beneath her feet, betraying her presence. Adam looked up, his green eyes crinkling with amusement. "We really need to stop meeting like this," he said, with a grin that made her heart skip a beat. Mia glanced at the book in his hands, and her eyes widened in recognition. "Is that can't be a first edition of The Great Gatsby? How did you find that here?" Her voice carried a mix of awe and disbelief. Adam shrugged, carefully closing the book with a gentleness that spoke of deep respect for literature. "I have a knack for stumbling across treasures. Sometimes the best things find you when you're not looking for them." His words carried a weight that seemed to mean more than just books. Their conversation drifted through various authors and literary movements, time slipping away unnoticed. Adam's knowledge was impressive, and Mia found herself drawn into passionate discussions about symbolism and narrative structure, forgetting entirely about her usual social media routine. When she tried to steer the conversation toward his background, asking where he studied literature, Adam smoothly deflected with practiced ease. "The past is less interesting than the present," he said, standing up and stretching slightly. "Would you like to take a walk in the park? It's too nice a day to spend entirely indoors." Mia hesitated, her phone feeling heavy in her pocket. She had planned to work on content later, but something about Adam's invitation intrigued her more than her usual routine. "Sure," she said, gathering her things, pushing. The evening light filtered through Mia's apartment windows, casting long shadows across her pristine living room as she curled up on her white leather couch, scrolling through her Instagram feed. Her fingers hovered uncertainly over the keyboard as she attempted to write about her afternoon with Adam. The words flowed easily at first, his challenging questions, their literary discussion, the way he made her see things differently, how his smile seemed to light up the whole library. But something made her pause, her heart beating a little faster. "Too personal," she muttered, deleting the draft with a quick swipe. Her usual posts were polished, perfect snippets of life, carefully curated moments that her followers had come to expect. This felt raw, vulnerable, different, dangerous even. The next morning, warm sunlight streaming through her cream-colored curtains woke her early, painting patterns on her bedroom wall. Her phone buzzed insistently with a reminder about the upcoming art gallery event. Several major brands would be there, and her manager had emphasized repeatedly how crucial this coverage would be for her channel and future partnerships. Mia's stomach twisted with familiar pressure, a knot of anxiety she knew all too well. Sitting at her sleek kitchen counter, sipping her morning coffee from her favorite ceramic mug, she found herself thinking about Adam's passionate perspective on art from their library conversation. Before she could second-guess herself or overthink the implications, she grabbed her phone and typed, "Art gallery event tonight at 7. Wanna come? Promise there'll be free champagne and pretentious art talk." His response came quickly, making her phone light up. "Free champagne? How could I refuse? Though I might disappoint with the pretentious art talk." Mia smiled at his casual reply, then frowned, worrying her bottom lip. Would he even dress appropriately? The event was high profile, and she had a reputation to maintain. Her influencer status demanded certain standards after all. Throughout the day, Mia busied herself with meticulous preparations. She planned her shots, mapped out potential content moments, and laid out 3 possible outfits on her king-size bed, analyzing each one for its visual impact. Her heart raced every time she thought about Adam being there, a confusing mix of anticipation and anxiety she couldn't quite explain or ignore. Finally settling on a black silk dress that perfectly balanced elegance with approachability, its subtle shimmer catching the light just right, Mia stood before her full-length mirror. She adjusted her carefully styled hair and double-checked her makeup, ensuring every detail was camera-ready. The reflection showed everything her followers expected: polished, professional, perfect. The image of success she'd worked so hard to cultivate. "It's just an event," she told her reflection firmly, trying to calm her nerves, "and he's just a guy." But even as she grabbed her designer clutch and headed for the door, the click of her heels echoing in the hallway, she knew neither statement felt entirely true. Adam was proving to be anything but just a guy, and tonight felt like it might change everything. The gallery's crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the polished marble floors as Mia stepped inside. Soft jazz floated through the air, mingling with the gentle clink of champagne glasses and sophisticated chatter. She adjusted her camera strap, feeling confident in her black silk dress and perfectly styled hair. The familiar scent of fresh flowers and expensive perfume filled her nostrils as she scanned the room, mentally planning her shots for the evening. Then she saw Adam. He strolled in wearing faded jeans and a plain white button-down shirt that looked like it had seen better days. The shirt's collar was slightly wrinkled, and his leather shoes were well worn. Mia's cheeks flushed as several well-dressed guests turned to look at him, their designer outfits a stark contrast to his casual attire. "You actually came," she whispered when he approached, trying to hide her embarrassment behind a forced smile. "Wouldn't miss it," he replied with that familiar crooked smile that always seemed to make her heart skip a beat. To Mia's surprise, Adam's casual appearance seemed to matter little once he began speaking about the artwork. She watched in amazement as he drew a small crowd around a modern sculpture, discussing the artist's technique with remarkable insight. His hands moved gracefully as he spoke, his eyes lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. "The layers of metal here," he explained, gesturing to a complex piece, "create a dialogue between light and shadow that most people miss. See how the afternoon sun catches each curve?" Mia introduced him to Jessica, a fashion blogger she knew, who raised an eyebrow at his attire, but soon became engrossed in his analysis of a painting's hidden meanings. Jessica leaned in closer, completely captivated by his passionate explanation of the artist's use of color and symbolism. "I never noticed that detail before," Mia admitted as Adam pointed out subtle brushstrokes in a landscape piece, his finger tracing the air just inches from the canvas. "How do you know so much about this?" Before he could answer, the gallery owner, a distinguished woman in her 60s with silver hair and elegant pearls, approached them. "Adam!" she exclaimed warmly, embracing him like an old friend. Throughout the evening, Mia noticed similar greetings from various prominent guests, each one treating him with a familiarity that puzzled her. As the crowd began to thin and the jazz quartet played their final numbers, Mia gathered her courage. "How do you know all these people?" she asked directly, adjusting her grip on her camera. Adam shrugged, his eyes twinkling with that mysterious glint she was beginning to know all too well. "I've been around." "That's not really an answer," Mia pressed, frustrated by his evasiveness. "Early morning tomorrow," he said suddenly, checking his phone. "Thanks for inviting me." Before she could protest, he was gone, weaving through the remaining guests and disappearing into the night. Later, sitting in her car, Mia scrolled through her camera roll. She paused on a candid shot she'd captured of Adam deep in conversation with a striking woman in an emerald dress. His expression was animated, passionate, completely at ease among these elite art circles despite his casual appearance. The contrast between his simple clothing and the woman's designer gown was striking, yet he seemed to belong there more than anyone else. "What's your story, Adam?" she whispered to the image on her screen, her finger hovering over his face as if she could unlock his secrets through the photograph. Sunlight streamed through Mia's kitchen window as she sat at her small wooden table, clutching her morning coffee. Her laptop screen glowed with photos from last night's gallery event. She clicked through them one by one, pausing whenever she spotted Adam in the background, her heart doing a little flip each time his face appeared in frame. Her finger hovered over the trackpad as she examined a particular shot. There he was again, deep in conversation with that elegant woman in the emerald dress. Something about their body language suggested familiarity, the way she leaned in when he spoke, how comfortable they seemed together. The woman's perfectly coiffed silver hair and designer jewelry sparkled under the gallery lights. "Who are you?" Mia muttered, zooming in on the woman's face. She opened a new browser tab and began searching, her journalist instincts kicking into high gear. Within minutes, she found her answer. Eleanor Preston, one of the city's most influential art collectors and philanthropists. Articles portrayed her as a driving force in the local art scene, known for her discerning eye and generous support of emerging artists. Her name appeared consistently in connection with major art world developments over the past decade. Mia's coffee grew cold as she fell deeper into her research, barely noticing the morning slipping away. She found photos of Eleanor at charity galas, museum openings, and exclusive auctions. One article particularly caught her attention. Preston Foundation partners with anonymous donors to fund revolutionary art initiative. The foundation had apparently raised millions for underprivileged artists. "Anonymous donors," Mia whispered, remembering how easily Adam had navigated the gallery crowd, how knowledgeably he discussed the artwork. Could he be connected to Eleanor's foundation? The pieces started fitting together in her mind, like a puzzle she hadn't known she was solving. Her fingers moved quickly across her phone screen as she typed out a message to Adam. "Thanks for coming last night. Sorry you had to leave early." Her heart raced as she waited for his response. His response came quickly. "No problem. Had a good time." Mia tried again, attempting to sound casual. "That was some impressive art knowledge you showed off. Do you work in the industry?" This time his reply was more evasive. "Just a hobby. I pick things up here and there." The message felt like another brick in the wall he seemed to keep between himself and others. Frustrated, Mia tossed her phone onto the coffee table. She curled up on her couch, pulling a throw pillow onto her lap and hugging it tight against her chest. Her mind raced with questions about Adam's true identity. She picked up her phone again, started typing, "Who exactly are you?" but deleted it immediately. Another attempt. "Are you connected to Eleanor Preston?" Delete. "Why all the secrets?" Delete. Each unsent message felt more desperate than the last. Finally, she set her phone down. This wasn't a conversation for text messages. She needed to look him in the eyes when she asked these questions. She needed to see his reaction, to read his body language. The next time they met, she would get her answers. No more dancing around the truth. It was time for real honesty between them. Mia's fingers drummed against her desk as she studied her latest engagement metrics. The numbers were decent, but something felt hollow about it all. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. Adam's name appeared on the screen, making her heart skip. "There's a private gallery opening tonight. Something you might enjoy. Interested?" Mia read the message twice, surprised by the sudden invitation. Her thumbs hovered over the keyboard as she considered her response. This could be her chance to finally understand who Adam really was. "I'd love to," she typed back, trying to keep her tone casual. "What time?" 7 p.m. I'll send you the address." Mia spent the next few hours carefully planning her outfit. She pulled dress after dress from her closet, examining each one in her full-length mirror. Finally, she settled on a sleek black dress that hit just above her knee, professional enough for an art event, but still stylish enough for content creation. As she applied her makeup, her mind raced with possibilities. Would tonight reveal Adam's connection to Eleanor Preston? Why did he seem so at home in these elite art circles while pretending to be just another casual observer? The gallery was housed in a converted industrial space, all exposed brick and soaring ceilings. Mia's heels clicked against the polished concrete floor as she entered, her camera bag slung over her shoulder. The space hummed with quiet conversation and soft jazz. Adam appeared minutes later, wearing his signature look, well-worn jeans and a simple button-down shirt. While everyone else wore cocktail attire, he seemed completely at ease in his casual clothes. "Glad you could make it," he said, touching her elbow lightly. "Come on, there's someone I want you to meet." He led her through the crowd to a distinguished-looking man with silver hair. "James, this is Mia Carter. Mia, meet James Morton, the gallery owner." "Adam!" James exclaimed warmly, clasping Adam's hand. "Always a pleasure. And Mia, wonderful to meet you. Adam's told me about your work in social media." Mia watched their interaction carefully, noting how naturally Adam moved through this world of art elite. He pointed out subtle details in paintings that she would have missed, explaining techniques and historical references with easy confidence. Across the room, she spotted Eleanor Preston in an elegant navy dress. The philanthropist caught Adam's eye and smiled knowingly. They spoke briefly in hushed tones, their familiarity obvious. As the evening drew to a close, Mia gathered her courage. "Adam, how do you know Eleanor Preston?" she asked directly. He glanced at his watch, that familiar evasive look crossing his face. "Oh, you know. I've been around," he said vaguely. "Sorry, but I should head out. Early morning tomorrow." Before Mia could press further, he was gone, leaving her standing alone among the dispersing crowd. Mia leaned against the gallery wall, her camera screen illuminating her face as she flipped through the evening's photos. Her finger paused on one particular shot. Adam and Eleanor, their heads bent close together in conversation. Eleanor's hand rested familiarly on Adam's arm, and his usual guarded expression had softened into something more genuine. "This isn't adding up," Mia muttered to herself. Sunlight filtered through Mia's bedroom curtains, but she couldn't find the energy to start her usual morning routine. Her phone buzzed repeatedly with notifications, brand deals needing approval, comments waiting for responses, and there, among them all, a message from Adam. She swiped past it, her stomach tight with a mix of hurt and confusion. The events from last night kept replaying in her mind. Adam's confession, the heated words they'd exchanged, the way she'd stormed out of the gallery. Around noon, a knock at her door startled her from her brooding. Through the peephole, she saw Adam standing there, looking unusually disheveled. He held something in his hands, what looked like an old photograph. "Mia?" he called softly. "Please, I need to explain." She hesitated, her hand resting on the doorknob. After a long moment, she opened the door. "5 minutes," she said firmly. Adam nodded, stepping inside. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by an unfamiliar nervousness. He held out the worn photograph, his hands slightly shaking. "This is me," he said quietly. "Senior prom." Mia took the photo. In it, a younger Adam stood awkwardly in an ill-fitting suit, his arms around two smiling friends. The suit was clearly second-hand, the backdrop a simple gymnasium. "I saved for months to rent that suit," Adam explained, running a hand through his hair. "Mom was working 2 jobs then. We could barely afford groceries some weeks." Mia looked up from the photo, seeing Adam in a new light. "What changed?" she asked softly. "I got lucky with some investments. Started small, worked hard, made connections. But the higher I climbed, the more I saw how fake everything was. People only wanted to know me for my money." He sat down heavily on her couch. "I'm sorry I wasn't honest with you. I wanted someone to know me for me, not my bank account." Mia settled beside him, the photo still in her hands. "I understand feeling trapped by expectations," she admitted. "Sometimes I look at my social media and don't even recognize myself anymore. Everything's so curated." "That's why I pushed you about authenticity," Adam said. "I saw someone else struggling with the same thing I was." The warm glow of candlelight filled Mia's apartment as she arranged the final place settings at her dining table. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted a crystal wine glass. The table looked perfect. Maybe too perfect, she thought, wondering if Adam would find it pretentious. The doorbell chimed, and her heart skipped. Adam stood there in dark jeans and a pressed button-down shirt, a step up from his usual attire, but still distinctly understated. "You clean up nice," she said, managing a smile. "I tried," he replied with a small shrug. "Though I feel like I'm heading to a job interview." Before Mia could respond, voices echoed from the hallway as her influencer friends arrived. They swept in wearing designer outfits and carrying expensive wines, their entrance accompanied by the clicking of camera phones. "Everyone, this is Adam," Mia announced, trying to keep her voice steady. Liv and Kelsey exchanged knowing glances. The other guests, mostly fashion and lifestyle influencers, sized Adam up with polite but scrutinizing smiles. During dinner, the conversation bounced between trending topics, follower counts, and brand collaborations. Adam sat quietly, picking at his food, while Mia's friends discussed their latest sponsored posts. "So Adam," one guest called out, "what do you do?" "Oh, this and that," he replied vaguely, taking a sip of wine. "Mostly behind-the-scenes stuff." The table fell into an awkward silence before someone quickly changed the subject to an upcoming Fashion Week event. Later, as Mia refilled drinks in the kitchen, Adam followed her. "Mia," he said softly, "I appreciate the invitation, but this just isn't my scene. These people, they're living in a completely different world." She turned to face him, clutching an unopened bottle of wine. "They're my friends, Adam. This." Sunlight streamed through Mia's bedroom window, but she couldn't appreciate its warmth. Her phone buzzed incessantly, each notification making her stomach twist. Mia walked through the park, her feet crunching on fallen leaves. The usual joggers and dog walkers passed by, completely unaware of the storm raging in her heart. She'd left her phone at home, unable to face another round of notifications and cruel comments. Finding an empty bench, she sat down and watched a group of pigeons pecking at breadcrumbs. The simplicity of the scene made her chest ache. Just weeks ago, she would have been planning the perfect Instagram shot of this moment. "Hey, stranger," a familiar voice called out. Mia looked up to see Liv approaching, 2 coffee cups in hand. "I figured I'd find you here." "That obvious, huh?" Mia attempted a smile as Liv handed her one of the cups. "Only to someone who knows you," Liv said, settling beside her. "How are you holding up?" "Honestly, I feel lost." Mia's voice cracked. "Everything I've built feels like it's crumbling." "You're stronger than you think," Liv squeezed her shoulder. "Remember when you first started? No followers, no fancy equipment, just you and your creativity." Back home, Mia sat at her desk staring at a blank document. Her manager had called twice more, leaving messages about damage control and engagement opportunities. She deleted them both. Opening her laptop, she found herself clicking through her old content. There she was, 3 years younger, filming makeup tutorials in her tiny studio apartment with terrible lighting. But her smile was genuine, her excitement palpable. "Look how happy you were," she whispered to her younger self. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she began drafting a statement. She deleted the first few attempts. Too defensive, too polished, too much like the persona she'd crafted. The clock ticked past midnight as Mia scribbled in her notebook. Ideas flowed freely now, not for a perfectly curated response, but for something real, something true. "This is my story to tell," she whispered, straightening her shoulders. The words felt right, like coming home after a long journey. Adam sat in his modern apartment, surrounded by carefully curated art pieces that suddenly felt meaningless. His phone screen glowed with Mia's contact photo, a candid shot he'd taken of her laughing at the cafe. The memory of their argument echoed in his mind, making his stomach twist with regret. "You're just using me for content," he'd accused her. The hurt in her eyes haunted him. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. Adam ran his fingers through his disheveled hair, remembering how quickly he'd jumped to conclusions. He'd spent years building walls to protect himself from people who only wanted his money. But had he just pushed away someone genuine? After 3 rings, his father's surprised voice answered. "Adam? This is unexpected." "Dad, I need your advice. Can we meet?" 2 hours later, Adam sat across from his father at their old favorite diner, a humble place that felt worlds away from his current lifestyle. His father looked older than he remembered, but his eyes were still sharp and knowing. "So, you met someone," his father said, stirring his coffee. Adam explained everything, meeting Mia, their growing connection, the scandal, and his reaction. His father listened intently, nodding occasionally. "You know, son," his father began, setting down his cup, "I lost your mother the same way. Pride, fear, always assuming the worst. Sometimes protecting yourself means losing what's worth protecting." The words hit Adam hard. He thought about Mia's genuine enthusiasm for life, her struggles with authenticity in a superficial world, struggles that mirrored his own. Back home, Adam pulled out his leather-bound writing desk, a reminder of simpler times. He found an old photo of himself at prom, wearing a thrifted suit that didn't quite fit. His teenage self smiled awkwardly at the camera, holding a corsage he'd saved up weeks to buy. With careful consideration, he began writing, "Dear Mia, I owe you an apology. I've spent so long protecting myself from people who only wanted my wealth that I forgot how to recognize sincerity when I see it." He wrote about his fears, his regrets, and his hope for a second chance. The words flowed easily now, honest and unguarded. Finally, he slipped the letter and photo into an envelope. Standing at his desk, envelope in hand, Adam took a deep breath. "It's time to stop running," he whispered to himself, his voice firm with resolve. Mia sat cross-legged on her cream-colored couch, Adam's letter trembling slightly in her hands. Afternoon sunlight filtered through her curtains, casting a warm glow on the carefully written words. She traced her finger over the photo he'd included, a gangly teenage Adam in an ill-fitting thrift store suit, his smile genuine and unguarded. "I've spent so long hiding from who I am," he'd written, "that I forgot how to let people see the real me." Taking a deep breath, Mia set up her camera in front of her favorite reading nook. No fancy lighting, no carefully curated backdrop, just her, barefaced and wearing a comfortable sweater. Her hands shook slightly as she pressed record. "Hey everyone," she started, her voice softer than usual. "No filters today. No perfect angles. Just me, talking to you about something important." She paused, gathering her courage. "I've been thinking a lot about authenticity lately, about the pressure we put on ourselves to seem perfect online." Her voice cracked slightly. "I've spent years crafting this flawless image, but the truth is, I'm just as messy and complicated as anyone else." Tears welled up in her eyes as she continued speaking. "Sometimes I forget who I am beneath all the carefully edited photos and sponsored posts. I forget that it's okay to be real, to be vulnerable, to make mistakes." After finishing the video, Mia's finger hovered over the upload button. Her heart raced as she pressed it, sending her unfiltered truth out into the world. She hugged her knees to her chest, watching as the first comments began appearing. "Thank you for being so honest. This is the content we need." Finally, someone brave enough to say it. As more supportive messages flooded in, Mia felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. She opened her notebook and began jotting down ideas, feeling inspired for the first time in weeks. This was what connecting with people really meant. Not perfect poses and polished captions, but genuine, messy, beautiful truth. Sitting at her desk, Mia smiled as she read another heartfelt comment. "This is what I was meant to do," she whispered to herself, feeling more authentic than she had in years. The morning sun streamed through Mia's bedroom window, casting a warm glow on her face as she reached for her phone. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the notification count, hundreds of comments, messages, and shares of her video from the night before. Wrapped in her soft cotton robe, she padded to the kitchen and made her morning coffee, then settled into her favorite armchair. One by one, she read through the messages, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you for being real," one follower wrote. "I've been struggling with the same things." "Your honesty is beautiful," said another. "This is the content we need." As she scrolled through her inbox, a simple message from Adam caught her eye. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. "I saw your video. I'm proud of you. Can we talk?" Mia set her phone down, her coffee growing cold beside her. The simplicity of his message touched something deep inside her, but fear crept in too. Before she could spiral into overthinking, her doorbell rang. Liv burst in, carrying 2 fresh lattes and wearing a proud smile. "That video, Mia! I couldn't wait to come over. You were amazing." "Thanks," Mia smiled, accepting the coffee. "But now I don't know what to do. Adam wants to meet." Liv settled onto the couch beside her. "And? What's holding you back?" "Everything that happened. The scandal. The fight." Mia trailed off. "Listen." Liv leaned forward, her expression serious. "I've seen how you light up when you talk about him. And that letter he sent, that took guts. Maybe it's worth hearing him out." Mia nodded slowly, picking up her phone. She typed and deleted several responses before settling on something simple. Okay, the cafe at 7? The rest of the day passed in a blur as Mia tried to distract herself with work. She drafted blog posts, answered emails, but her mind kept drifting to the upcoming meeting. What would she say? What did she need to hear from him? As evening approached, Mia changed 3 times before settling on a simple sweater and jeans. Comfortable, authentic, no pretense. She grabbed her keys and headed toward the cafe, her heart pounding with each step. The familiar scent of coffee and pastries greeted her as she approached their usual meeting spot. Through the window, she could see the table where they'd first talked, really talked, about their dreams and fears. Taking a deep breath, she reached for the door handle, wondering what this conversation would bring. The evening crowd at the cafe created a gentle buzz of conversation as Mia sat at a corner table, her fingers wrapped tightly around her coffee cup. She watched steam rise from the drink, trying to steady her racing thoughts. Every time the door chimed, her heart jumped. When Adam finally walked in, his usual confident stride was replaced by hesitant steps. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it nervously. Their eyes met across the room, and a small, uncertain smile crossed his face. "Hi," he said softly, sliding into the seat across from her. "Thanks for meeting me." Mia nodded, not trusting her voice just yet. Adam looked down at his hands, then back up at her with determination in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he began. "I reacted badly when everything happened. Instead of supporting you, I let my own insecurities take over." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I actually talked to my father about it." Mia's eyebrows rose in surprise. She knew from their previous conversations that Adam rarely spoke to his father. "He helped me see how I was letting fear control my actions," Adam continued. "Your video, it was incredibly brave. It made me realize I need to be braver too." "I felt so betrayed when you accused me of using you," Mia said quietly. "After everything we'd shared, how could you think that?" "I know," Adam replied, his voice thick with regret. "I've spent years keeping people at arm's length, afraid they only wanted me for my money. But you're different, Mia. You always have been." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their words settling between them. "I'd like to try again," Adam said. "If you're willing, we could take it slow, really get to know each other's worlds this time." Mia studied his face, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "I'd like that," she replied softly. "Actually," Adam leaned forward, enthusiasm creeping into his voice, "I had an idea. What if we worked on something together? A project combining your storytelling abilities with my art world connections." A spark of interest lit up Mia's face. "What kind of project?" They spent the next hour discussing possibilities, the tension between them gradually melting away. When they finally left the cafe, Adam insisted on walking her home. Outside her building, they shared a warm hug that felt both familiar and new. As Adam's footsteps faded down the street, Mia touched her key to the lock and whispered, "Maybe this can work after all." Sunlight streamed through Mia's bedroom window as she woke up, feeling refreshed and energized. For the first time in weeks, her mind wasn't clouded with worry about likes, comments, or maintaining her perfect online image. Instead, creative ideas bubbled up inside her, demanding to be heard. She grabbed her journal and started scribbling frantically. Words and concepts flowed freely. Authenticity, real stories, unfiltered moments. Her hand could barely keep up with her thoughts. This wasn't just another social media project. This was something bigger, something that could really matter. Later that morning, Mia sat across from Sarah in a sleek downtown coffee shop. Her manager's perfectly manicured nails tapped against her tablet as Mia laid out her vision. "I want to create a photography book," Mia explained, her eyes bright with excitement. "Not glossy fashion shoots or staged moments, real people, real stories, the kind of authenticity we rarely see anymore." Sarah's expression wavered between interest and concern. "Mia, honey, I understand you're going through changes, but a book, that's a huge investment. The market for print is tough these days." "I know it's risky," Mia admitted, clutching her coffee cup, "but I really believe in this. People are hungry for genuine connection." Just then, her phone buzzed with a call from Adam. She excused herself to take it. "Hey, I was just thinking about you," Adam said warmly. When Mia shared her book idea and Sarah's concerns, he didn't hesitate. "Let me help. I could fund the project. No strings attached, just pure support." Mia's first instinct was to refuse. "Adam, I need to prove I can do this on my own." "Success doesn't mean doing everything alone," he countered gently. "Think of it as a partnership. You maintain complete creative control. I'm just providing resources." After some discussion, Mia saw the wisdom in his offer. She spent the rest of the afternoon reaching out to photographers whose work she admired and making lists of potential subjects for the book. That evening, sitting at her desk, Mia opened a fresh notebook. With careful strokes, she wrote the title that had been forming in her mind all day: Unfiltered: Stories Behind the Lens. Looking at those words, she felt a deep sense of rightness settle over her. The autumn breeze rustled through Mia's hair as Adam's car wound its way through the countryside. She watched the city fade in the rearview mirror, feeling the weight of social media expectations and public scrutiny lift from her shoulders with each passing mile. "I've never brought anyone here before," Adam said softly, his hands relaxed on the steering wheel. "It's kind of my sanctuary." When they turned onto a tree-lined driveway, Mia's breath caught. Rows of perfectly maintained grapevines stretched as far as she could see, their leaves turning golden in the autumn sun. A beautiful stone house stood proudly in the distance, weathered but elegant. "Adam, this is incredible," Mia whispered, taking in the scene before her. As they walked through the vineyard, Adam's usual guarded demeanor melted away. He pointed out his favorite climbing tree from childhood and the spot where he'd built his first fort. His eyes lit up as he shared stories about helping with the harvest as a teenager. "Over here," he said, leading her to a worn wooden bench beneath a massive oak tree. From his messenger bag, he pulled out a stack of letters, yellowed with age. "These are from my father." Mia sat close as Adam began reading fragments of the letters. They spoke of family legacy, expectations, and the pressure to maintain the Walker name. His voice grew quiet as he described his decision to forge his own path. "I understand more than you might think," Mia offered. "My parents wanted me to become a lawyer. When I chose social media instead, they didn't speak to me for months." Adam squeezed her hand gently. They spent the next few hours walking through the vineyard, sharing hopes and fears they'd never voiced before. When they reached a hilltop overlooking the estate, Adam spread out a checkered blanket and unveiled a picnic feast. "The wine is from our best year," he said, pouring 2 glasses. "I've been saving it for a special moment." As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, they sat in comfortable silence. Mia leaned against Adam's shoulder, feeling truly at peace for the first time in years. The morning sun painted streaks of orange and pink across the sky as Mia and Adam loaded their overnight bags into his car. The vineyard stood quiet behind them, its vines swaying gently in the morning breeze. "I can't believe how peaceful it is here," Mia said, taking one last look at the estate. "It's like a different world." Adam smiled as he held the car door open for her. Sometimes we all need a different world to help us see things clearly. During the drive back to the city, they chatted easily about Mia's photography book project. The tension that had existed between them just days ago had melted away, replaced by a comfortable warmth. "I'm thinking of calling it Unfiltered Stories," Mia explained, her hands moving animatedly as she spoke. "Real people, real moments, no editing, no perfect lighting, just life." "I love that," Adam nodded, keeping his eyes on the road. "I actually know a few people who might be perfect for your first subjects. There's this amazing baker who started her business from her kitchen during the pandemic." They pulled into a small roadside diner for breakfast, sliding into a worn red vinyl booth. Over coffee and pancakes, they laughed about their first meeting at the cafe and how far they'd come since then. "Remember when you called me Mr. Homeless Chic?" Adam teased, reaching for the syrup. Mia groaned, covering her face with her hands. "Don't remind me. I was such a judgmental mess." Back in the city, Adam's car pulled up to Mia's apartment building. Before she got out, he turned to her with sincere eyes. "Hey," he said softly, "I want you to know I'm here for whatever you need, whether it's connections for the book or just someone to bounce ideas off of. No pressure, no expectations." Mia felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you, Adam. That means a lot." Up in her apartment, Mia immediately dove into work mode. She pulled out her corkboard, pinning up inspiration photos and jotting down potential subjects for the book. Her fingers flew across her keyboard as she created spreadsheets and timelines. As midnight approached, Mia sat back in her chair, surrounded by the creative chaos of her planning session. Her eyes landed on a photo from the vineyard, she and Adam laughing under the oak tree, completely unposed and natural. She picked it up, running her finger along the edge. "This is going to be amazing," she whispered to herself, smiling at the photograph. The morning sun was gentle as Mia set up her camera equipment in the community park. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her lens, watching families and joggers pass by. This wasn't her usual polished photo shoot. This was something raw and real. Helen arrived right on time, her silver hair neatly pinned back and a warm smile lighting up her face. She carried a worn leather photo album under her arm. "Thank you so much for doing this," Mia said, gesturing to a wooden bench beneath a sprawling oak tree. "Oh dear, thank you for listening," Helen replied, settling onto the bench. 43 years of teaching, and still so many stories to tell. As Helen shared her experiences, Mia found herself lowering her camera more often than raising it. She was captivated by tales of students whose lives Helen had touched, of small victories in crowded classrooms, and quiet moments of breakthrough with struggling learners. "The real joy," Helen said, opening her photo album, "wasn't in the big moments. It was in the tiny victories, a child finally understanding fractions, or a shy student finding their voice." Mia captured Helen's expressions as she spoke, the crinkles around her eyes when she laughed, the gentle way her hands traced old photographs. These weren't the perfect, curated shots Mia usually posted. They were better. They were real. Adam appeared mid-morning, keeping a respectful distance as he watched Mia work. She caught his eye briefly and saw his encouraging smile. His presence gave her an extra boost of confidence. "You know," Helen said, closing her album, "teaching taught me that everyone has a story worth telling. We just need someone willing to listen." Mia nodded, feeling tears prick at her eyes. "And someone willing to share it honestly." After the shoot, Adam approached them. "That was beautiful to watch," he said quietly to Mia. "You found your groove." Later, back in her apartment, Mia uploaded the photos to her computer. Each image told a story. Helen's weathered hands, her genuine smile, the way her eyes lit up when sharing memories. These weren't the glossy filtered photos her followers were used to, but as she flipped through them, Mia felt a deep sense of pride she hadn't experienced in years. This was what she was meant to do. Mia's phone buzzed early the next morning, jolting her from a peaceful sleep. Her stomach dropped as she saw multiple notifications about Serena's latest video. With hesitant fingers, she pressed play. "Oh, look, everyone!" Serena's perfectly made-up face filled the screen. "Our favorite social climber is trying to rebrand herself as Miss Authentic. How convenient, right after that scandal with her mysterious rich boyfriend." Mia's hands shook as she watched Serena mock her project, complete with exaggerated air quotes and eye rolls. I mean, who does she think she's fooling? This desperate attempt to seem relatable is just sad. Fighting back tears, Mia called Liv. "Have you seen it?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. "I have, and it's pathetic," Liv replied firmly. "She's just jealous because you're doing something meaningful while she's still posting about designer handbags." As Mia paced her apartment, there was a gentle knock at the door. Adam stood there holding a bouquet of wildflowers. "These aren't perfect," he said with a small smile, "but that's what makes them beautiful." Mia couldn't help but laugh through her tears. "How did you know?" "Liv texted me," he admitted, stepping inside. "Listen, Mia, people like Serena, they attack what they don't understand. What you're doing scares her because it's real." Mia placed the flowers in a vase, touching the soft petals. "You know what? You're right. Both of you are." She sat down at her desk and began typing a new blog post. Authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. Yesterday, I met a woman who spent 43 years shaping young minds. Her story wasn't filtered or curated. It was raw, honest, and beautiful. That's what this project is about. Not likes, not followers, just truth. Within hours, comments flooded in. "Finally, someone keeping it real. This is the content we need. Don't let the haters stop you, Mia." Later that evening, curled up on her couch with her laptop, Mia scrolled through the overwhelming support. Her phone showed another notification about Serena's video, but this time she simply smiled and whispered, "Let her say what she wants. I know what I'm doing." The morning sun streamed through Mia's apartment windows as she reviewed her notes for today's photo shoot. Her first session with Helen had given her a newfound confidence, and her Instagram post about it had received heartwarming responses from her followers. Equipment checklist? Done. Interview questions? Done, Mia muttered, ticking off items on her list. Her camera bag sat ready by the door, packed with extra batteries and memory cards. At the farmer's market, the aroma of fresh bread filled the air. David, her subject for the day, worked methodically behind his booth, his hands covered in flour as he kneaded dough. His young daughter sat nearby, homework spread across a small table. "The bakery started in my garage," David explained as Mia snapped photos of him working. "After my wife passed, I needed something to keep me going. Baking was our thing, you know. Now it helps me support Emma." Mia captured genuine moments between David and his customers, the warm smile as he handed over fresh loaves, the way he remembered everyone's usual orders. Through her lens, she saw the beauty in these simple, honest interactions. Adam arrived around noon, carrying coffee for both of them. He watched Mia work with admiration, noting how naturally she connected with her subject. During their lunch break, they sat at a quiet corner table, sharing a loaf of David's sourdough. "I love seeing you like this," Adam said, watching Mia scroll through the morning's photos. "You seem different, lighter somehow." Mia nodded, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "For the first time in ages, I'm not worried about getting the perfect shot or maintaining an image. These stories, they're real and raw and beautiful, just as they are. After the market cleared out, Mia packed up her equipment while Adam helped carry her heavier bags. "You know," he said, "you're proving everyone wrong, especially Serena, by just being yourself and doing what you love." Back home, Mia settled at her desk, uploading the day's photos. Each image told part of David's story: his skilled hands shaping dough, his proud smile as his daughter showed him completed homework, the warmth in his eyes as he served his regular customers. As she began writing the draft to accompany the photos, Mia felt a deep sense of purpose. This project wasn't just about pretty pictures. It was about real people, real struggles, and real triumphs. The cafe buzzed with its usual afternoon crowd as Mia pushed open the glass door. Her heart skipped when she spotted Adam standing near their usual table, wearing that same scruffy outfit from their first encounter. A stack of well-worn books teetered precariously in his arms. "What are you up to?" Mia asked, raising an eyebrow at the familiar scene. Adam's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Just recreating a special moment." He shifted the books dramatically and with an exaggerated stumble, sent them tumbling toward a carefully positioned tripod. The setup clattered to the floor, drawing curious glances from nearby patrons. "Really?" Mia laughed, shaking her head. "You're not going to spill my coffee too, are you?" Adam straightened up, his playful smile fading into something more serious. "Mia," he began, loud enough for nearby customers to hear, "when I first knocked over your tripod, I had no idea how much you would change my life. I was wrong to doubt you, to let my fears get in the way of seeing who you truly are." Mia felt her cheeks flush as cafe patrons turned to watch. Adam continued, his voice steady and sincere. "You've shown me what real authenticity looks like. Your strength, your creativity, the way you've grown. It's incredible." "Adam," Mia started, but he held up a hand. "Wait, there's more." He reached behind the counter where a barista handed him a wrapped package. "This is for you." Mia carefully unwrapped the gift, revealing a sleek professional camera. Her fingers traced the engraving. "For the girl who sees the truth." "I don't know what to say," she whispered, running her fingers over the smooth surface. They talked for hours, sharing hopes and fears they'd never voiced before. The afternoon light softened into evening as they finally stood to leave. Hand in hand, they walked toward the door. Mia squeezed Adam's fingers gently. "I'm glad I gave you another chance." Adam's smile was warm as he replied, "Me too." The gallery hummed with anticipation as guests filtered through the doors. Soft jazz music played in the background while waiters weaved through the crowd with champagne flutes. Mia stood near the entrance, her heart racing as she greeted each arrival. The walls showcased her photographs, honest, unfiltered moments of real people's lives. Adam squeezed her hand reassuringly. "They're going to love it," he whispered. Liv and Kelsey burst through the doors, both beaming with pride. Kelsey pulled Mia into a tight hug. "Look at you. This is absolutely incredible." "We knew you had it in you," Liv added, wiping away a happy tear. "From influencer to genuine artist. What a journey." As the gallery filled, Adam smoothly introduced Mia to various art critics and collectors. His quiet confidence helped calm her nerves. The conversations flowed naturally as Mia explained her vision for the project and the stories behind each photograph. A hush fell over the crowd as Mia stepped up to give her speech. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady. "This project started as a personal journey to rediscover authenticity, but it became so much more. Each person who shared their story with me taught me something about truth, courage, and genuine connection." She caught Adam's eye in the crowd. "And to those who believed in me, even when I doubted myself, thank you." The crowd parted suddenly as Serena walked in, dressed elegantly but subdued. Mia tensed, but Serena approached with an unexpected warmth in her expression. "Your work is beautiful, Mia," Serena said softly. "I was wrong about you. These stories, they're real. They matter." As the evening wound down, Adam pulled Mia aside. "I have one more surprise," he said, leading her to the center of the gallery. "This space, it's yours. I bought it anonymously to ensure your work would always have a home." Mia's eyes widened. "Adam, you didn't—" "I did," he smiled. "Your vision deserves to be shared." Later, when the last guests had departed, Mia and Adam stood alone among the photographs. The quiet gallery seemed to pulse with the energy of all the stories captured on its walls. "You've created something truly special," Adam said, wrapping an arm around her waist. Mia leaned into him, taking in the moment. "We both have," she replied softly, her voice full of contentment. The late afternoon sun streamed through Adam's apartment windows, casting a warm glow across the living room. Mia sat cross-legged on the plush couch, her laptop balanced on her knees as she scrolled through another collaboration offer. "That's the third one this week," Adam remarked, handing her a steaming cup of tea. "I know, it's incredible," Mia said, accepting the cup gratefully. "I never imagined the book would resonate with so many people." Adam settled beside her, his presence calm and steady. "You gave people something real. That's rare these days." Mia closed her laptop and set it aside, taking a moment to really look around Adam's space. No longer the mysterious setting it once was, but a place that felt like a second home. "Remember when I thought you were just some scruffy guy who ruined my shot?" "To be fair, I was trying to ruin your shot," Adam chuckled. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Adam spoke again. "I've been thinking about your idea for a traveling exhibition. We could start with major cities, share these stories across the country." Mia's eyes lit up. "You really think we could make it work?" "Absolutely. I've already reached out to some contacts about venues." He paused, reaching for an envelope on the coffee table. "Speaking of traveling..." Mia opened the envelope and gasped. "Paris? Adam, these are tickets to that workshop I mentioned months ago." "The one you've been dreaming about since college?" "Yeah, I remembered," he smiled. "But what about everything here? The exhibition plans?" "We'll make it work," Adam assured her. "Maybe we could even start a nonprofit. Combine your storytelling with some resources I have. Make a real difference." Mia set her tea down and turned to face him fully. "I want to do it all, but I don't want to lose sight of what matters most. You and me, this relationship we've built. We'll figure out the balance together," Adam promised, pulling her close. Mia rested her head on his shoulder, feeling completely at peace. She laughed suddenly, poking his side. "I'll never forget that awful t-shirt you wore when we met." Adam grinned, catching her hand. "And I'll never forget the girl who saw right through it." Their fingers intertwined as they sat together, content in the knowledge that whatever came next, they'd face it as a team. If you enjoyed the story of Mia, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.